Actor Jameela Jamil has caused a storm, especially among the right wing, with her comments about British people. Criticizing the British Empire on yesterday's podcast, she said this.
So lucky to have been a part of that show. It was so well written. And Megan Amram, as well, is one of the lead writers on that show, who just wrote the shit out of Tahani. And so, like, together we all crafted her. But I just had to make her more of a bitch. They wanted her to be very sweet because Americans think British people are so sweet, which is crazy because British people are truly the most evil people in history. Like, they are Thanos. Britain is Thanos.
Go to a museum, guys.
Yeah, they owe 43 trillion to India.
Maybe go to Chiltern Firehouse and leave there and be like, wait, was that girl mean to me? Like, everyone's mean.
But we colonized the world.
Just the artifacts in the museums. I'm like, why is that not in Africa?
Yeah, so the idea that, like, she would be this sweet, saccharine woman. And so Mike Schur was kind of like, we disagreed. We sort of butted heads a little bit about how to play her.
It shouldn't be controversial to say how evil the British Empire was. We killed 100 million Indians between 1880 and 1920, more than the Soviet Union, North Korea, and China under Mao combined. Yet this has upset the right wing because everything seems to upset them.
Yeah, they're lying whether it's out of ignorance or willful blindness, or whether they're just being disingenuous. You can be generous on that front. Imagine saying that the British people are the most evil in history. What is she saying? That we're worse than Nazi Germany in the extermination of Jews, homosexuals, the disabled, gypsies, Poles and Slavs and others? Worse than Stalinist Russia with millions dying there, not to mention the Holodomor in Ukraine? Worse than Chairman Mao in China? Worse than the Belgians in the Congo, or indeed, of course, the non-European empires that committed cannibalism, human sacrifice, the Mughal Empire in India, where millions of Hindus and Sikhs were killed by their Muslim overlords. And this goes far wider than this cretinous woman.
Brendan O'Neill wrote an entire piece about her in The Spectator, but these two paragraphs were interesting. We are witnessing the revenge of the sensible. After years of top-down haughty groaning over Britain's history, its blood-stained flag and its horrible people, normies are starting to say, nah. That's what all the flag raising that's what all the flag raising was about last summer. It was the people striking back against the luxury self-loathing of their supposed betters. It was a working class rejection of the elite culture of shame. It really is a class divide. You know you're in a working class part of Britain when you see Union flags fluttering, and you know you've crossed back into hipster or leafy territory when the eyesore pride flag appears, or worse, the ghastly Palestine flag. Imagine hating on the colonialist British flag even as you wave a flag under which more than 1,000 Jews were butchered not even 3 years ago. Brendan O'Neill managed to insert his attack on Palestine in there, whilst claiming that patriotism is a working class virtue. But this also speaks to a broader issue. O'Neill is correct that it's certainly harder to say these sort of comments Jameela made when it was a decade ago, but that is due to the fact that the debate has moved to the right. It doesn't mean that criticizing the empire is any less correct. Curtis, what do you make of this story? Because on one hand, she's not incorrect, but also I can kind of understand why people are offended by this, because we are, as British people, probably centering ourselves in that conversation. Like to think we're not evil, but maybe we are. What do you make of it?
Maybe we are. Maybe we are. I'm going to respond to Brendan's comments before I talk about Jameela Jamil. What a fascinating article that was. There's so much to unpack here. So let's look at what he said about Palestine. Really incredible what he's saying there, because he's trying to push this idea that there is a hypocritical nature to being anti-imperialist and criticizing the British Empire, but supporting Palestine. First of all, Palestine isn't even a state, and they're facing not just a genocide, but those that are committing the genocide, Israel, are a settler colonial state. So supporting Palestine is the anti-colonial position. So it's not hypocritical. Obviously, he's trying to say that thousands of Jews were murdered just 3 years ago under the Palestinian flag. We don't need to go into this again. We know the history of Israel-Palestine. We know that October 7th didn't happen in a vacuum, so I don't need to go through that again. But crazy how we had to sort of insert that in there. What I find most interesting from Brendan O'Neill and it's not just him, lots of people in the legacy media do this, is quite patronizing to the working class, because he's trying to say that elitism and anti-elitism is based on culture, on your social views and vibes. No, what determines someone as working class is your relationship to production. It's how much power you have, right? It's nothing to do with the fact that, oh, I'm a bit reactionary in my social issues, or that I love the flag. And yet Brendan O'Neill's trying to say, well, that is why last summer we had loads of people raise their flags, because it was a rejection of elitist mindset. That's an insane thing to say, because actually patriotism and subservience to the state is the most elitist thing you can do. I mean, before capitalism, we lived under feudalism of kings and queens. And what was the role of the peasant class? It was to serve, bend the knee, and have complete loyalty to the king and queen, often under banner of the flag. So to say that actually being patriotic is counter-revolutionary or revolutionary to the established order of elitist woke politics is absolutely insane, and it's completely backwards. Because of course, when we lived under feudalism, we tried to tell people that actually, you must serve the king, you must serve the British state, or it wasn't really a state back then, but the realm, okay? So there's nothing more elite than technically being a patriot to the British state. Now, of course, today, people have their different ideas of patriotism. I think people might criticize me for bringing up this term, progressive patriotism, but I would say, to me anyway, being patriotic is willing to criticize this country and when it does bad things. Not because I want to forever moan about Britain and the British Empire, because I want it to be better. Now, if we were to endlessly bend the knee to the British state and just being blindly patriotic, then this country's never going to improve. So we criticize it to make it better. So Brendan O'Neill was trying to basically say that Jameela Jamil actually has the elitist view because she criticized Britain. Now let's talk about Jameela Jamil's comments. I was actually messaged from a GB News producer, and they said, do you want to come on and talk about this? And I didn't watch the video. I just Googled her comments, and I was like, because they wanted someone to defend her. And I was like, I actually don't agree with her, so there's no point me coming on. But today I actually watched the clip, and my God, she's basically making a joke. Like, obviously the point she is making is that the British Empire was largely evil, and it was. And you have British right-wingers trying to downplay the atrocities of the British Empire when it was terrible. We did awful things. We committed genocide. We committed famine. In fact, ironically, that clip of the person on Talk TV who called her a cretin said that, Stalin killed more people. Stalin killed all these people in the Soviet Union. Chairman Mao killed all those people. But the graphic you showed explained how Britain killed more people than them combined. So we still killed more people. But watching the video, it's clear that it was kind of an offhand comment. She was making a joke. And actually, she spoke about this point for like 30 seconds. It wasn't that she had a whole segment about the British Empire and how backward every British person was. She was talking about a TV character in which, as she explained in the podcast, she's British and the director or producer wants to be really nice. And she was like, well, actually, British people are kind of evil. Let's make her a bit of a bitch. Like, it was an offhanded comment. And I just think, once again, the right wing are having a huge meltdown. I mean, why is Talk TV, GB News talking about this when she just did it on a random podcast? Like, why are they bringing this up? It's not important. But, of course, it's more culture war stuff. So I just think, once again, I've said this point so many times, that everything the right wing accuses the left of is exactly what the right wing is. It's pure projection. It's fragile. It's being a crybaby, being a snowflake. She made a little joke, and that was it. I'm not offended. I just think if you're someone who actually has things that really matter to you, you shouldn't give it a second thought.
I don't really think I've got much more to add there. I think you absolutely hit the nail on the head. And looking at the comments, I think a lot of people also feel very similarly. I think Jameela Jamil is, absolutely fab, to be completely honest with you. She's stunning, gorgeous, hilarious, and also has really great politics, and is just so intelligent.
Yeah.
Like anytime I ever listen to anything that she ever says, I'm just like, wow, I want to be you when I grow up.
Well, I mean, the thing is though, before I watched that clip and I just saw what was reported about her, right? I was ready to criticize her because ultimately we know the issue isn't with people, it's with systems. It's with imperialism. Like British people are not inherently evil.
No.
We're no more evil than anyone else. Ultimately, human beings have the capacity to be good and bad. But
100%.
but of course, when it comes to systems of imperialism, that's the evil. So there would be many people during that time, British people, who'd be like, "What we're doing is wrong." So of course, if I were to isolate her comments and when she said, "Oh, British people are like the most evil people in the world," if we were to take that at face value, then of course I criticize that because it isn't. It's imperialism, it's systems of power, it's global capitalism. And often, global capitalism doesn't just turn on the world, it turns on itself. So British people are victims of imperialism and global capitalism because the capitalists in charge, right, aren't like, "Oh, we love British people, we're taking care of them." No, they exploit us too. So it's not like nations or people versus other people, it's systems, right? But I almost feel ridiculous trying to even unpack her comments because when you see the context in which she said it in, she said it as a joke. "Oh, British people are the most evil people in the world, the British Empire." Like it wasn't that serious. And again, the right wing are just having a meltdown because they have to. It gets views, it gets clicks, and ultimately, Talk TV and GB News wouldn't exist without outrage culture. They might actually have to talk about the climate crisis or growing levels of inequality or food banks. They can't talk about that because their billionaire backers don't want you to talk about that. So this is their real red meat stuff. But unfortunately, a lot of people eat that shit up.
But also, right wingers do love to be offended by everything.
Yeah, they are.
And I think they also are just so obsessed with this idea of patriotism that any criticism of the British government or colonialism or British Empire history, etc., just comes almost back to I don't know, just a general criticism of us as a nation, and there's no learning from anything. Do you know what I mean? It's just oh, well, if you're going to criticize anything about Britain in the whole history of Britain as a nation since the beginning of time, then you're unpatriotic and you don't love your country and blah blah blah. Stop the boats, deport people.
Stop the boats, right? Patriots,
That's
stop the
what
boats.
that's what it will come
People
back round
people
to.
personalize it, right? They feel personally offended, and that's a very deliberate thing from the British media class and the British state is to try and they're very successful at this, by the way, is to tie criticisms of the British state with attacking your fellow countrymen. They are two separate things, but the political establishment have deliberately merged those two things because ultimately those in power do not want you criticizing the British state. They don't want you criticizing our foreign policy, for example. And there are moves from right-wing parties, politicians. I mean, Kemi Badenoch came out and said that we need our children to be more proud of our nation. There are moves from right wingers that want to indoctrinate our kids to never question the British state. They want to create subordinate subjects. So when you criticize the British state, which should be criticized, the media class will automatically say, "Do you know what they're doing? They're criticizing you and your way of life." And that's where a lot of racism comes from. You see a lot of online comments from Jameela Jamil like, "Well, she's brown or she's not even British, she should leave." When it's not a personal attack. In fact, people need to understand that actually ordinary British people and ordinary working class people are separate from those in power. And we're criticizing those in power and the state apparatus, not individual people. But of course, it doesn't serve the interests of the oligarchs and the billionaire class if we were to separate the two. So they merge them together.